to strength here, and Jaedong is definitely behind, and he needs to do something to pull this back here. He needs to try and whittle down those Sarah numbers. Bisu's build up those Sarahs, he's got a decent number of Sarahs there. He's also got a Photon up in his main, and Jaedong with his Scourges hasn't landed a single hit. He seems to be slightly off color, just playing perhaps a touch below his best, and you feel that obviously the matchup versus Hyuk wasn't necessarily the best preparation going up against Bisu, whereas Bisu has been sharpened with his encounter with Haya, where he certainly was tested a little bit. Again, back to Jaedong's first person mode. The critical thing here is that Jaedong's economy hasn't taken up too much of a hit, even though he was slowed down by losing those 3 overlords. I believe that was a huge loss. You would probably count on losing 1, maybe 2 overlords, but losing 3, maybe 4 is not something that you would count for as a Zerg player, and certainly something that could completely destroy your game plan. Jaedong doesn't seem to have a lot on the ground in terms of ground units, really, and Bisu is in a very comfortable position. He's drawn the early blood from Jaedong. Jaedong hasn't been able to kill a single Corsair, and Bisu again with the Corsair scouting around with a lone Corsair, just checking to see what Jaedong's up to, constantly feeding back information to himself, and now finally putting that robotics facility down. But he's built up a decent-sized ground force of High Templar and Dragoons, and a few Zealots as well, which I'm sure are going to be speed upgraded by now. Jaedong scouting as well with the Scourge, now trying to intercept that Corsair. 1 Scourge hits, 2nd Scourge going to take that Corsair down, and the Corsair does get taken out. Bisu, we've seen him do some amazing Scourge dodges, and I have to say, people talk about Savior not really being in his prime, and not being able to perform to the level that we want him to, but nevertheless, he still manages to beat Bisu. He is in fact the last Zerg player that I remember actually having beaten Bisu in a matchup, which was a couple of months ago, and it's interesting to me that he doesn't feature for CJ. I'm sure Savior is better than a lot of the players CJ put out in their Pro League games, and I wonder if that's by his own choice and by his coach's choice to allow him to focus on the Star Leagues. I'm looking forward to seeing how amped and ramped he's going to be in the Star Leagues coming up in the, I believe, MSL, and I will be commentating on that when that comes out. Another Sair for Bisu. Jaedong's now got a group of Mutalisks out, but really going for the fast Sairs, going for the fast Spire, for the Spire first, he really didn't do much with it. He didn't have the Scourges out in time to really prevent Bisu's Corsair harass, and he didn't really have it. And great storm by Bisu, catching Jaedong's Mutalisk. So Jaedong's Mutalisk taking horrible damage, caught up in double storms, and really straight away those Mutalisks taking a lot of damage, and he's lost about 3 or 4 Mutalisks already from his initial pack, and so far Jaedong has inflicted 0 damage on Bisu's forces. He's really being taught a lesson here in Protoss versus Zerg gameplay. I don't think it's got anything to do with the map. Protoss do tend to be stronger on this map, but it's just he seems to be outplayed at every avenue. He went for the 9 pool initially, that didn't work out for him, wasn't able to put any pressure on Bisu early on. Bisu was still able to put his Nexus down first, unless perhaps Jaedong went for an overpool and I miscalculated. Even so, Jaedong just not really putting any pressure on Bisu. I don't think he's killed, other than 1 Corsair, I don't think he's killed a single unit of Bisu's thus far. But once again, those Mutalisks trying to find an avenue, trying to whittle down, and you can see Bisu's already got that Protoss ball that's just going to roll all over the map and crush the Zerg underfoot. And Bisu, despite having, Jaedong, despite trying his best, has not been able to snipe a single Templar of Bisu's. Bisu keeping his force together, and Jaedong's force of primarily Hydralisks is just going to be cannon fodder to Bisu's forces. Bisu now taking that expansion, his second expansion, his 3rd base at the 5 o'clock position. That's the only slight advantage that Jaedong has had, but really Jaedong, a Zerg player with a Protoss player with 2 bases is very comfortable against a Zerg player with 3, and now it's going to be 3-on-3 bases, and that is just going to show you the kind of dominance that Bisu has established in this game. I have to tell you guys, when Bisu first erupted onto the scene, I wasn't a huge fan of his. I was a little bit annoyed because he beat Savior, and I was a huge fan of Savior, and he ended Savior's dominance, and not only did he end it, he completely destroyed Savior's confidence, and I held a grudge, despite being a fan who enjoys all forms of StarCraft. Jaedong with a decent snipe there with a high, despite being a fan. Jaedong once again coming in with the Mutalist, trying to get a snipe off. He's going to be able to take one of those High Templar down. He does manage to take the High Templar down, and now he's fighting on top of the ridge, but those Hydralisks need to move there. He needs to retreat those Hydralisks. Storm by Bisu, taking those, Jaedong losing all the Hydralisks, but he has managed to kill all of the Zealots. Another great storm by Bisu. Bisu's storming has been perfect. He's getting storms all over Jaedong's Hydralisks. Jaedong not able to move his Hydralisks out in time, and Bisu's forces now just pushing him back further and further, and Jaedong is really struggling to stay alive in this game. That was horrible by Jaedong. He just didn't move those Hydralisks out. When he killed those initial group of Zealots, he should have pulled those Hydralisks back, but he didn't. Just trying to hold his ground, counting on those Mutalisks. He's lost all his Mutalisks in the process as well, but now he's managed to get us around on Bisu's Dragoons. Bisu being a little bit cavalry here, fighting on top of the ridge. Bisu's got reinforcements streaming in, but those Zealots aren't going to arrive in time. Zealot comes and dies straight away. Bisu has managed to take the high ground now, and Jaedong really inflicted a lot of casualties on Bisu's there, despite losing the initial fight with the storms, and Jaedong doing a lot of damage to Bisu's Dragoons. I don't think Bisu counted on that. Jaedong now has the shortest supply route to his reinforcements. Bisu's going to be forced to pull back. This attack isn't going to prove decisive. Nevertheless, you still feel Bisu has the advantage. Jaedong, meanwhile, has managed to get another expansion up, and that's why he was desperately trying to hold that bridge, because that expansion at the 12 o'clock position is going to be hugely vulnerable. Bisu with the Archon getting taken down. Jaedong with the Hydra Distill versus the Dragoons. Jaedong looks like he's got 1-1 upgrade on those Hydras. Bisu with reinforcements coming in, trickling in, both players trying to get those reinforcements in. Bisu's going to have the final say here though, because he's got a massive amount of reinforcements coming in, and he's going to take that ridge, and that's going to kill that expansion, and that's probably Jaedong's last hope in this match. That's going to be taken down at that 11 o'clock position, and Jaedong's going to be in huge trouble now, if he wasn't already, and Bisu now able to have enough forces to hold Jaedong's reinforcements off while taking that expansion down at the 11:30, 12 o'clock position, and that, folks, is probably going to be GG right there. I don't think Jaedong's going to be able to recover from this. As it is, he's been behind all game, and you have to say this has been a very convincing performance from Bisu, although I did feel that when he was pushing up there, he took a little bit of a risk, allowing Jaedong to get a few more kills than Jaedong really should have gotten, but those storms have completely laid waste to the Zerg forces, and excuse me, just let littered corpses of Zerg bodies all over the battlefield, leaving Jaedong with little option. Jaedong trying to hold that expansion, unable to do so. I'm not sure if Bisu had obviously scouted that with that single Zealot, and now Bisu with equal number of bases to Jaedong's, both with 3 bases, Jaedong obviously having his third base up running longer, and Bisu, I feel, with the superior army, Jaedong now finally getting some lurkers out. If he had a couple of lurkers in those fights, that might have helped him, but really he is struggling here. But yeah, as I was telling you guys, I wasn't a huge fan of Bisu's when he first burst onto the scene. I wasn't happy with the way he dispatched Savior, although I can't hold that against him, but I did feel bad for Savior, since I am a huge Savior fan, and the rivalry, obviously I would be supporting Savior and would have been hoping for Bisu's demise and downfall. Jaedong looks like he's going to try and rebuild that expansion at that 12 o'clock position, now that he's been able to retake that ridge with the force of those lurkers. And if Jaedong had a couple of lurkers even in that fight, it could have made a huge difference, it would have made all the difference, but unfortunately he didn't. And I felt Jaedong could have fought a little bit more of a retreating battle there initially, but I guess he just was desperate to hold on to that expansion. Looks like he's now going to try and